Another beautiful Monday. Welcome to Medical Mondays with Dr. O, a place where we learn to strengthen our health, to learn how to better our lives, and to be successful, because without good health, we cannot be successful. So, I am Toyin Okwesami, a family practitioner, HIV specialist, and I treat substance use disorder in Maryland. We started this month on domestic violence and all it entails. We had an exciting time last week and brought our speakers back this week to talk about solutions. So how do we even identify that there is domestic abuse around us? And then what do we do to avert the inevitable if nothing is done? That's what we'll be talking about tonight. So sit tight and let's learn while I bring on our very own Dr. Lillian Adeyegbe.
Absolutely wonderful. And you
Welcome.
did us have been practicing.
Yes.
So good evening, everyone. Glad to be back here with you, talking about domestic violence and how do we respond to it. I wanted to first make a quick clarification. When we talk out in the community, we talk about domestic violence. When we talk in academia, most of the time among practitioners, we talk about intimate partner violence. And that's because there's a distinction between both of those things, as I saw a comment in the chat. When you're talking about intimate partner violence, you're talking about violence between people who have an intimate relationship currently or previously. And that violence may be occurring in the homes where they're living or may be occurring anywhere. Now, when we talk about domestic violence, then you can bring up all the other violence that are occurring in a domain, as in domestic, and you can talk about child abuse, elder abuse, and all the other forms of abuse. So for the purpose of this conversation that we're having, I think the emphasis is on intimate partner violence, violence that's happening between people who are currently in a relationship or who were previously in a relationship. I wanted to say that in order for us to respond to it, one of the key things is knowing what it is. Knowing what it is. A lot of times we've had to tell people that this relationship you are in an abusive relationship. And people don't understand. People think unless I'm being beat up, I'm not in an abusive relationship. So there's value in understanding what abuse is. I want to focus on two things. I will go over the power and control wheel in more details. I went over it last time. And then I will also go over what the Rest of Our Life, which is my organization, what we say to members of our community like you, what is your responsibility? So share my screen. And you're seeing the power and control wheel, like I said. We talk about using coercion and threats. So making and carrying out threats to do something to hurt the person, threatening to leave the person, threatening to commit suicide, threatening to report the person to authorities, making the person do things that are illegal. This person is not physically hurting the person, but all of these are a form of intimate partner violence. Making the person be afraid by the way you look at them, smashing things around the house, throwing things, putting your gun or your weapons around. All of those are forms of abuse. Putting the person down, making them feel bad about themselves, so you're too fat, you're ugly, I had no business doing anything with you. Humiliating them in front of their family, in front of their friends. Keeping the person in isolation. They can't go out unless they obtain permission. They probably qualify to work, they're not working because the person wants to control them. Whenever the person says something is wrong, that person is minimizing their concerns, denying it or blaming them outrightly. You made me do it. If you hadn't done Z, I wouldn't have done X. using children as a threat. I'm going to take the children away from you. You're not going to see the children again. I'm going to tell the authorities that you're not a good parent. It says male privilege, but I like to call it partner privilege. So it can be male or female, just partner privilege, having the sense of entitlement that I get to make all the big decisions. You are not relevant or you do not know anything. And then using economic abuse. Somebody has a bank account, has to turn over all their money, can't account for their own money, do not have the liberty to do the money, use their money the way they want. So it's important for us to note that intimate partner violence is not always going to manifest itself as physical violence. You may not see physical scars, you may not see bruises, but all of these things, when they're happening, you're experiencing the dynamics of power and control, know that a person can be in an intimate partner violence situation. And I'm going to share my other screen now to talk about when we talk about people, what do we mean? From current. So it's okay, so I'm going back. No, sorry. Exit. This is sorry, this is from an earlier presentation. So let me make sure I have the right slide, which I'm trying to project. Excuse me 1 second, I should have the right slide. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And so what I'm doing is putting you on call. Dr. O is a doctor, and a lot of you have worked with doctors before. And you know, what does it mean for you to be on call? It means that you should be ready at any time to respond. And so all of us as members of the community, we should be ready at any time to respond. What should we be ready to respond to? Challenge abusive behaviors. We must not leave it up to the victim alone or up to professionals to challenge abusive behaviors. We have to create societies that have zero tolerance for intimate partner violence. And you know yourself what is proper behavior. You don't abuse your partner, but you see somebody else who's abusing their partner and you just turn a blind eye. All of us must be ready to challenge abusive behaviors. You see somebody intimidating somebody, using threats, coercion, manipulating them, minimizing them. We must step up to the plate and challenge abusive behaviors. Everybody must advocate for change. Are there opportunities to change? All around us, there are opportunities for change. There are opportunities for us to be having these conversations in our communities, our faith communities, wherever they are. The opportunities for us to be advocating for offices, our workplace, to have presentations and education and awareness opportunities. The opportunities for us to advocate in a school board. Are we teaching people as they're growing up healthy relationship? Are we teaching them respect for people? Somebody grows up and is now a full-grown man, is now a full-grown woman, and you're expecting behaviors from them. The time to let them know how to behave was when they were growing up. And we have opportunities to advocate for schools to include healthy teen dating information in school curriculum. So we must be active in our PTAs or however opportunities we can get those trainings in. A lot of us work in workplaces where you have all of these trainings that you're required to take. Currently in my workplace, they're doing the active shooter training, okay? So you can have an active shooter training. You can also have a training on domestic violence. You have policies, advocate for change. Things have to be done differently in order for us to be safe in our communities. We need to listen to abuse victims. We want to say, oh, what did you do? You know, it's been your fault. Or did that really happen? Now, it is true that we have found out in some situations where people have claimed to be victims and it turned out that that was not the case. But the percentage of people who are reporting falsely to be victims when they are not is really insignificant compared to the number of people who are actually victims. And when we listen to victims talk about how they got into the situation, how the abuser is able to mask their behavior, how we as members of the community are re-traumatizing them by not paying attention to the things that they're saying, we're able to gain a better understanding of how we can support them as community members. So we have to be listening to victims. And lastly, we need to lend support to survivors. There's nothing, well, maybe there's something, but I cannot imagine how painful it is for someone to commit their lives to another person and then have that person be the person who's abusing you. And you have to pick up your life and you have to move on. They're coming from a very deficient position. They've lost trust, they've lost confidence in self, lost so many things. And the thing that we must do, we have the potential to get those people to become active contributors to our communities, but we can't do that if we don't support them. If we don't support them and make sure the right policies are there, if we don't support them and make sure that they can get funding, we have all sorts of policies. For instance, if you don't know, ordinarily you can't break your lease without penalty, but if you're in an abusive situation, you can break your lease. So there are all sorts of ways in which we can lend support to survivors. We want for them to be able to heal from their trauma. We want them to be able to come back into society. We want them to be able to do the things that they want to do. So I'm putting you, if you are on this, there are 33 other people other than myself, and you have heard me today, I'm putting you on call. Your beeper isn't going to go off because there isn't one. Your conscience is going to be your beeper. And anytime your conscience goes off, if you have an opportunity to challenge an abusive behavior, to advocate to change, to listen to abuse victims, or to lend support to survivors, you should step up to the plate. You should do something and play a role in keeping people safe in our communities. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Straight to the point, succinct. That's it. I have a question for you. I learned something. I learned so much in here. But you said one can break one's lease legally if there's abuse?
Yes. So there is laws. There are laws that provide for abuse victims to be able to break their lease. And you can break your lease and you can move out. Tinu, I don't know if you want to speak more about that, but we have VAWA laws. There's so many laws, benefits for even the Violence Against Women Act, protects domestic violence victims, breaking their lease, provides opportunity for them in visa situations. A lot of victims, sometimes that they come, their legal status is tied to their sponsor partner who's abusing them. Well, if you can show proof that you're a domestic violence victim and you cooperate with law enforcement, you can actually don't need that abuser. So all that terrorizing you and threatening to call law enforcement for you, it really doesn't hold any water if you can take advantage of those legal protections.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That I didn't know. So, and, there are other things, we still talk about, but thank God also that we have on the forum tonight our very own attorney.
Good evening, everyone. This is Tinu Akinshola. I am so.
You won't let me introduce herself. So there you go. You do.
No. Last week, you let me do my own introduction.
I want you to do it again.
Okay, so this week, let's reverse the role. Now go ahead.
Oh my gosh, can you believe her? I said, go ahead, but guess what?
Okay.
This is our own attorney, Tinu Akinshola, with a heart of gold, a passion to help, a passion to make a difference in our communities. It's a blessing to have her. So There you go.
Thank you, Dr. Ho, Dr. Ho, and everyone, Dr. Craig and co. You are all wonderful people. I always like to come in here to learn. And of course, Dr. Lillian sets me right most times too. So she's a good resource and a good sister, you know. So like she said, on the legalese aspect, really I wanted to add something to the last two things that she said, you know, regarding the breaking of the lease, as well as the VAWA piece. And VAWA is Violence Against Women's Act. This is a United States Act. You know, it's a federal law, and it allows the victims a lot of things, you know, including and not limiting them to, of course, if they are illegal, they are able to file for their own legality in this country. And, you know, like every other thing, even with the breaking of the lease, you need document. So you need to consult. You can't just break the lease without talking to a lawyer, you know. You need people to be set in place for you, especially attorneys who do these types of work, so that they will help you to get all those documents that they need, you know, to help you file, so that your case will be weightier than just ordinary, because they can still say, oh no, they can turn it out, you know, they can say no to you. But of course, with all the proper things in place, you are onto a good and final point. So having said that, last week, the way it went, and I'm glad that Dr. Lillian started off where she did today, because in my mind too, I was saying, when I was just thinking about this presentation over the weekend on Saturday particularly, I was thinking to myself that, oh, you know, we just assume that people know what domestic violence is, and we never really give a certain definition. Of course, there are so many definitions, and also we didn't give the brief overview how we get to where we are now, especially in the US and the Western world, because Africa, and particularly Nigeria, is still warming up. And of course, to some certain extent, the Arabic world, you know, Middle Eastern and some second and third world country, they're still warming up. It's even a big challenge here in the West, you know, for that matter. So what am I saying? I'm saying that the history of domestic violence, how we got here. And first, to do the definition, the ballpark of the definition, you know, boils down to saying that it's a pattern of abusive behavior in a relationship that is used by one person who is, of course, in the intimate relationship with another person. So, and that person is using that abusive, consistent actions, you know, against the other. Of course, you know that we talked about having power and control. So this person that is consistently abusing the other is the one with the power, the one with the economic power, the one with actually presumed to be powerful in the relationship. And of course, Dr. Lillian was able to break it down to us last week that presumption favors men. But of course, we have women too who are abusers. So having set that in motion, and I'm glad that she also went ahead, you know, to talk about the types of the abuse. Because when we started, I think somebody was chatting and asking about child abuse and all that and all that. So that
actually is not. Okay. It's conversation for next week that I don't know why it was posted, that this also happen with children in the household. Children can be victims of domestic abuse. So let's clear off the subject of this week.
So yeah, that's true. So anyway, so we're looking at what constitutes abuse legally. before really. Yeah, I was given the historical and empirical background. So it used to be that a husband and a wife, it's nobody's business. They are in their business. This is domestic issue. This is family issue. This is the shush. Nobody wants to know and all that. Well, don't wash, you know the expression, don't wash your linens in the public. So nobody wants to hear about what you have to say or how your husband is doing this or the other one doing that to you. So it's a shush thing. But then because of the fact that this same thing, it's a ugly and wicked, callous action going on, is actually costing everybody, including the government. It's costing the family, the community, you know, the person who is being abused here, personal, is costing the government and everyone, the society, even in the globe. So that was when the government now came up with series of laws and saying, okay, let's back up with these abused victims. Because even sometimes at that point, a lot of abusers really were police officers too. And how can a victim go into a police station to report to someone you know will be right there in your county, your husband, to himself? So it's not gonna fly. So that was the basis behind, the rationale behind that law coming up. Okay, so we got that out. Now, we're talking about, and these days, okay, we usually talk about intervention when we should actually be talking about prevention. Let's prevent these actions before it happened. And that is why last week when Imam was talking, you know, I kind of love what the background, the factors he laid. And those factors actually are the things that we should look at ahead, you know, of the relationship happening, okay, before we intervene. Because when you're intervening, it's too late. The deed is done. The abused has already, the victim, right, has already been abused. If she's or he is lucky, still survives, and then we can talk about it. So how do we now prevent that? Doctor laid that very well for us. So I will go just lay it down, cut it down a little bit further, because I was able to jot down some things yesterday. So we're talking about public education. Public education starts from self. Before it goes to school, before it goes to government, it's in the family. And who is this family, or who are in this family? The home front, you know. Of course, if we are able to do the counseling initially, the home too will be able to actually enjoy and benefit from that. So mommy and daddy, they behave in such a way that is not abusive towards each other, and the kid sees it. That child would not go out to abuse anybody out there. So that starts on the home front. Then you go to school, because we as parents are primary mandatory reporter. You see something, you say something, and then it goes out there into the school before you can say, okay, yeah, teacher is also mandatory reporter. So are nurses, social workers, and you doctors. So, but before you push it up there, let us catch it right there in school. So what do we do in school? We do age appropriate curriculum is what we use, you know, for, and then we teach the kids, you know, alternative approach to conflict. How can you speak with your mouth and not your hands? So we're not doing the shoving, the pushing, the talking down, the psychological issue, actions, and all that, like Dr. Projected out, even up to stalking. Sometimes you are even frightening someone. And by the way, the thing that we say as lay people is so different from what the legalists are. Because, for example, when you say, oh yeah, she just came and assaulted me. Assault in the legal term is different from assault in the layman's language. In the layman's language, I can just jump at you from a corner and you will be saying, don't assault me, you know. I know, like Nigerians, we say that, but really an assault is actually connoting hitting, can be a part of assault. So that being said, we need to tell people, educate them what is domestic violence. How can you be domestically violated? Who does it? Who cannot be violated? Anybody and everybody can be violated, regardless of your age, your circle of influence, or your wealth status, or your educational background, your employment, whatever. So those are the things that needs to be set into base. Now, I also wrote down for myself that, of course, that education piece, they categorized it into three spheres. The first one is that the education piece. And of course, the policy, which is at the community level. No, the policy is at the government level. That is the tertiary level. But the secondary level is at the level where you now assign, there are some people that are called bystander. You know, we get the bystander approach. Doctor knows what I'm talking about. So the bystander approach is sort of like, even in the family or in a circle of friends, you know, I see someone, I see spouses, and it's like every time I see them, the woman or the man seem melancholy. She is not really, life has really gone out of her the way I knew her or him to be. So, I mean, it's not saying that get into people's business, but it's saying that when you know that something is not right, it probably isn't. So, but there is a tactic, a way to actually ask and get into that. So, of course, those are how you get onto knowing the early signs. You know, this person who used to be bubbly, I can't imagine me staying in one place in a function or in a particular seminar. Oh yeah, please help me, something is going on. So you know someone who is bubbly, who has is outgoing, you know, and you're not seeing that person anymore, she seems to be disappearing, then that could be one of the telltale signs, of course. And of course, maybe I will let you also ask questions. So, but before then, let me do this. Let me go to the legalist part. If you know you have been domestically violated, you're a victim of domestic violence, what should you do? You need to consult an attorney. But sometimes people are afraid, especially because of the money part, you know, the funds. And of course, aside from the fact that you're thinking about your children, you don't want to take them out of the situation, okay? So what should you do? We have legal aids, of course, and there are so many nonprofit organizations that can help you. They have advocates, they have volunteers. Certainly, She Rises International Inc., we have them. Dr. Lillian is one of our experts, and I am also there. They can help you to file ex parte orders, you know. They review and sign it and fill the documents with you. Of course, when you, it's a district court. So when you submit it at the at the courthouse, there is a 7 days return on that form. So you have to go back to court to defend that allegation, because this country and the West, of course, he who alleges must prove it. So they will, of course, tell the other party who is the abuser to come and defend his or herself too, because there are of course, even outside the lay people, there are two sides to a story. So the judge, as an impartial umpire, he or she would want to hear both sides. But if your life is in danger, and you know that to be one of the things the victim can have on the form, is that you want the house to be, you want to be in the house with the children. And then they can safely tell the other party, who is the abuser, to go find somewhere to stay for the interim by the time the prior, or even between then and the time that the judge will decide what is going to happen in the long run. So that is I want to say the immediate remedies that can be given to the victim, and of course the children of the relationship. I don't know if I should just go on again. If my funds are not involved, of course, House of Ruth and other organizations can help. Outside of that, if you know that you don't have that money, or to defend yourself and all that, legal aid is there. So that's what they're there for. And of course, She Rises, we don't have funds, but I try to, as much as, help people to do what I need to do, and then calling out to people to help us, so that sometimes you can even ask on the form your protection. You want protection. You want to be protected, because some abusers are actually very violent, that sometimes they can post a police officer on your premises, or to escort you wherever you have to go. You have to tell people at your job, look out for XYZ, because this is what you're going through and all that. So there's a lot of things that a victim can really do in that aspect. And there are organizations that you can approach. We aim to, and I'm saying we, She Rises, we aim to be able to be a one-stop shop organization where we can provide you a lot of other things that we could give you. But for now, we're not. And what do the organization do for you? I've talked about helping you, assign you an advocate, a court companion. I used to be one when I was at Family Crisis Center. And then they help you to gather your evidence and everything you need together. They help you to file your ex parte orders. They help you to go to the attorneys. Sometimes they help you call and set you up with all that. And also resources, if you need mental health evaluations, if you need to see the doctors, maybe there are some marks and scars on your body that needs to be treated. Maybe you need some prescription, the medical screening is there. Also, if you need to get training, it is legal, because it's all part of the laws that the state or the county can afford to the domestic violence victim, including the immigration document that Dr. spoke about. Now, I also want to tell us about the issue of services outside the medical or health one. You can also do the mental health part, and then, of course, individual therapy. And this is if you still want to go with this guy or not, or this woman. But sometimes even if you don't, you still need these resources for yourself, treatment for yourself. And this is one of the things that the one-stop shop organizations will help you to do. The last one, which is very critical, because this is one of the basis why domestic violence victims don't really want to leave the home. And this is, where will I live? Where do I stay? Of course, there's transitional homes, which is shelter. And some people don't like to go into the shelter. And some are saying, oh, can I go into the shelter without my children? And we talk about domestic violence as if it's only women all the time that are on the receiving end. There are men too. And it's just turned out that, of course, the states and the government, they are trying for the men also, but there are not too many resources available for men. So we can do better in that angle. And now let people ask questions before we talk again. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Wow. That was deep. Knowledge is power, and we need this information. Why do people stay in these relationships? You said that, nobody should please ask that question or put somebody down that is staying in. There are lots of reasons. There's something that just came out that was sent to me about this young man, Toby. I don't know if you've seen it on social media, who was dating this, it's an African-American or African young man dating this Caucasian girl who was very abusive. The CCTV TV in the apartment complex showed her hitting him, pulling his hair, and he was just wadding her off. They've called police like in the, I don't know, few weeks they were there, they called police like 30-something times. Always this girl hitting him. His friends were asking, why don't you leave her? Eventually, he did. When he leaves or is angry, she buys him designer stuff, goes back to beg, and she goes, and the friends were asking, why are you with this girl? And he said, she's actually a nice girl. It's just when she drinks. So when she drinks, if she becomes a beast, she needs to get help. She needs to get counseling. She needs to go into counseling. She needs to go into psych care and get herself well. But one needs to pull oneself out of the situation. He left. She called him to come visit her. He had left her. Finally made the decision, I'm leaving, and left. He went back. Report has it that he took the dog for a walk. He was gone for like an hour, 30 minutes or so, stopped by Safeway to buy both of them sandwich on the way back, took it there to the apartment, and within 15 minutes, he's been stabbed by her, and she killed him. So when Attorney Tinu said, we need to talk about prevention and not intervention. We need to prevent rather than looking to intervene. That's key. Prevention is the key. When you also said, if you know somebody who is bubbly and all of that, and you don't see them anymore, it's beyond that. If you see them and they're not bubbly anymore, please, let's be a friend and pull them aside and get to the bottom of why. When I was in medical school, my class was one of the classes, I don't know how many schools were used to figure out how to do clinical examinations where students actually see patients and they videotaped and graded. I got all of my patients right. Diagnosis, body language, bedside manners, 100%, 100%. I missed one patient. That patient came in. These are standardized patients now. And she never looked at me in the eyes. Her head was down. She complained of things that were just abstract, didn't make sense. She never gave me eye contact. Her diagnosis was domestic violence. And I missed it. Hurt like hell. Please, let's be attentive to our friends, to our family members. When there's a change, there's a reason. Let's prevent instead of trying to intervene. It may be too late. So I have Ms. Lovetta Tugbe raising her hand. Thank you. Thanks for muting. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. O, and thank you, Tinu, for this very, very informative virtual event. The issues of domestic violence, we definitely need to continue to communicate or speak on this to raise awareness, most especially in our African community. You know, we come from Africa where, many of our men and women go through abuses. And when they come to America, they don't know their rights. And so they know that, they don't know their rights in order to protect themselves. So with this information, it really helps for them to know that, there are rights to protect them. Domestic violence comes in so many forms. A lot of time we think it's physical, but it could be financial, it could be sexual, and it could be emotional. And no person has to go through that abuse just to maintain or be in a relationship. And knowing the laws and knowing what the informations and resources can help to prevent that. So thank you again for having such a wonderful, informative virtual event. And I'm hoping that we'll continue to do this to raise awareness to stop the abuse. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution. There's mental also, sister. Do you know that? Mental abuse. And Africans will not touch that mental thing. So you're right. And by God's grace, we will continue. And our very own Madam CEO, Madam VP, kindly unmute, ma'am. Madam Lara Okunube.
Thank you. Yeah. Abuse is not a one-size-fits-all, like some people have said. There are many dimensions to it, particularly for those of us from Africa. We see a lot of it. Those that are mostly abused are the house help. The husband will sexually abuse the house help, and the house help cannot say anything. But even the children, they physically and emotionally abuse the house help. They will just slap the girl the head or they. Can't you see? Just all kinds of words. Like my sister said, we have to train people to use words, the words that doesn't hurt, words that does not objectify people. We have to use words that support and empower people. It starts from there. And that is why you see some people, they are cyber bullies. The way they would attack you either on internet or on WhatsApp or whatever, these people, they have other issues going on in their head. Some people don't know how to have a normal relationship unless they're aggressively in control. They don't know how. So it's not just those who are physically abused. There are all kinds of abuse. We need to retrain ourselves to have socially acceptable conduct in every setting, not just at work. You don't become Jekyll and Hyde. You don't have one face at work, and then when you get home, you're somebody else. So it's everybody. Everybody is guilty of one thing or the other. I want to say this, and this is why we need to renew our minds. For those who are Christian, we need to renew our minds, and we need to figure out how do we be a better neighbor, a better mother, a better sister, a better wife. And particularly for those women that subject themselves to this abuse. I am sorry to say, nobody deserves to be abused, but some women they provoke stuff. If you know that your husband or your partner has difficulty, in channeling his anger, You didn't stay right there in front of him and be talking, or saying all kinds of stuff. Because before somebody comes for you to hit you, you must be in close proximity for the most part. Unless somebody that's really vindictive is targeting you at a specific time. But you have to stay out of harm's way. And these are some of the things that we can pass on. We're here now, and we're looking at things in hindsight, and we know that these things are no longer acceptable. So we are advocates. We have been positioned here for a time like this. Well, let's take it from every single level. Start with the housekeeper when you go back to Africa. You see how your family or your friend, how they treat their housekeeper. Let's start from there, because everybody is human. We are all human, and we all deserve to be treated right. Thank you for letting me get on the soapbox.
Thank you. Thank you so much, man. I can see that Sister Tinu and Sister Lillian would like to comment on that. But before we do that, I want to bring on our brother, Mr. Lawal, sir. Kindly unmute.
Hello, yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Tinu, for that wonderful presentation. It's good to hear your voice after a while. Yes, actually, Mr. Okunobi touched on one of the things I was going to mention. As a father of girls, a big girl, all my children are girls. This kind of things is good to know that there are ways to begin to address it properly. And the most important part of it is prevention, like you rightly mentioned. I do have a lot of nephews. And in Nigeria particularly, I have witnessed how they treated their house helps, you know? And this is where this starts. It starts at the beginning. If you don't stop it from your children, when they become husbands, it will be difficult because it only means one thing. They don't appreciate girls. They don't appreciate women. They don't appreciate the opposite sex. So that is why it's very, very important to catch it early and deal with these young kids when they're still growing and see how they treat girls around them, either because they have the authority to do what they want to do, or they just have the ability to do so. So the other thing I was going to ask you, without mentioning names, even in our circle as men, we have seen situations where the men are at the receiving end. In that case, what are the things that can be done without getting equally violent to prevent or to prevent from being abused as a man? That is a question I want to ask.
Thank you so much, sir. That is one that, men have you go, they don't talk about it. So Dr. Lillian, kindly respond to that.
Yes, well, a couple of things. I'm reading that no person must allow themselves to be abused by anyone. We do not subscribe to the school of thought that people allow themselves to be abused. Even when somebody is in your face, as it were, we know that people go out in society and people say things that upset them. You don't go around bashing people because you don't agree with what they're saying or things like that. Again, we say abuse is intimate partner violence, a case of power and control. You're trying to exercise your authority over that person, And when we say nobody should subject themselves to abuse, and then we look at the social ecological factors that are predisposing that person to be a victim. I often give the example of tobacco smoking and cancer. We know very well that the link between tobacco smoking and cancer is well established. It is a person who will decide for themselves. It is a person who has to actually stop smoking or smoke a cigarette. But in order to facilitate that person making that choice, we have policies that ban smoking in public places. We have high taxes on tobacco so that people won't buy cigarettes. We have policies that prevent tobacco companies from advertising their product anywhere and anywhere. We have policies that require them to put on their pack that tobacco smoking is dangerous for your health. It is still the individual person who will actually smoke the cigarette or not, but we create the enabling environment for them to stop smoke. We have smoking cessation program. Okay, we don't just say it's one person and so you're left to yourself. Why? Because behavior is influenced on multiple levels. So when you say, oh, you should remove yourself from that place, but a person lives in a society where they are stigmatized for being divorced. You want to address that societal stigma if you don't want that person to stay in that relationship, because as long as there's that societal stigma, that has implications for the person. You live in a society where we say that our religious values say that once you get married, you must stay married. You want to address that religious value because it has implications for that person. And that's why we talk about this as a social ecological level intervention. You don't work on the person alone. People do not get their behaviors all by themselves. Yes, it's the individual person, but there's all those levels that we need to modify in the behavior if we are going to get domestic violence to end. I'm not a fan for the conversation about men also suffer abuse and women also suffer abuse, because I know for a fact that women also underreport abuse. So when we're talking about reporting factors, for instance, there are women who are married to religious leaders who don't, even if they said they're being abused, people won't believe them because these men are exemplary community members. And so they don't want to come up against that, like, what are you talking about? So they don't report. There are women who are married to powerful, who are not religious, but who are successful community members who also don't report. So there's underreporting at all levels. As a public health practitioner, my preference is to really advocate for us to create the environment that supports healthy relationships. Because when we create that environment, both men and women will benefit from it. Nobody has to be a victim. Nobody has to underreport. If we are putting the resources, we talk about things like equal pay for equal work. Because yes, some women stay in these things because they don't earn enough money and they need to be in a two-income household. So if we address the social issue of equal pay for equal work, if we address the issues of gender bias and all of these things, we can address these things. But fundamentally, we want to be addressing the behaviors and the policies that put somebody in a power imbalanced situation that enables another person to be able to exercise control over them.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. So, Mr. Lawal, I hope your question was answered. Sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Can I add
much.
also?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to add that all that have been postulated earlier for a lady also goes for men. In terms of removing yourself from the situation, in terms of finding resources and assistance, for help, assuming you are now domestically violated. And I know there are men's shelter, not as many as there are for women. And of course, like Dr. Lillian rightly said, men, especially African men, they cannot be heard to tell their friends that, oh, my wife is abusive. Abusive in a setting, not or trading words. No, it's not that. It's curses. We call it, oh, she's raining curses at me and all that. But the abusive is the physical and the other part that as the Western world know it. So what I'm trying to say is that the same can go for you as a man. And also, this is where also we have the family step in, it could go in tandem with bystander approach, which is perhaps your spouse, who is a lady in this instance and who is the abuser, assuming she can still be spoken to. You can talk to, I don't know who is a bosom friend or aunt or an elder, perhaps in the church or mosque, or some people that she really truly cherish and revere. And I purposely did not say parents because our parents are always biased. I don't care who you tell. My mother, but I can say that my mother is one of those frank one that she doesn't care. She will tell you to do this and that and that. But even at that, some parents, and I always say this for my own girls, I have one girl biologically, but I have several girls that I mother every day. And I tell them, you have to marry the person who truly loves you more than you do him, but then ensure that anything is going on, try and resolve, conflict resolution, do it by yourself. If not, don't bring me into the question, because even though you may say, oh, Mom.
Can we leave that for next week more?
Yeah, but I'm trying to say that as an adult, me, I'm an adult, but I still have a parent. I would not tell a parent, but I'm trying to use that to buttress the point that you can have family resource, as people that you can pull together and aside and say, please help me talk to my wife as a man. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Madam CEO, kindly go ahead, please, unmute. And Imam, please be ready.
Yeah. So while we're talking on the issue of prevention, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. While we're talking about the issue of prevention, because right now we're treating the symptoms, we see the abuse, we see the conduct. How do we get to the root cause of it? There are men that have vouched that I will never touch a woman, but their mouth is more toxic than that of a woman. They know how to push the button. They know how to push that woman to the very end. The back is against the wall and they enjoy it. It's part of the control. So, the woman may not be thinking and just crazy going, because I'm sorry about the story that Dr. O told about this woman stabbing the gentleman to death. But what is it that drives her to drink? If she's a monster when she drinks, what drives her to drink? We don't know. The man may be one of the antecedents to that. So there are just so many things that we have to deal with, so many parts of it. It's not just one thing. But I agree with Attorney Tinu. Let's look more about prevention, and we see all this, what do you call it? Signs. These signs are all over the place. If it's not right, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. In the instance that I talked about, the girl actually was drinking before they met. And her problem was success. She's in the public eye, modeling, she's a star, and that was the issue. She didn't know how to handle success. And she needed to have gotten counseling and gotten that taken care of. That would have been the preventive measure. The young man did not need to put himself in that situation. And in that situation, if we say it, we need to make sure that we get the young man counseling too, that no, you need to remove yourself from this toxic situation. You advised me on one today, internet toxic situation that I needed to remove myself, and I did. We have to remove ourselves. Prevention is better than intervention, as Attorney Tinu advised us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So I have questions on here, Dr. Adeyegbe and Sister Tinu, because they're calling you Sister Tinu on there. And so I'm going to do that. We have questions, but I'm going to bring Imam up because we have Imam and we have our own Dr. Reverend. So let me tell you also, our Imam is also a doctor. And I tried to clarify that last week, but he won't respond to me. But I, somehow, some way, I got to the bottom of that. So we have our Imam and doctor. I'm going to let you introduce yourself this week. I do that sometimes. So please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. O. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be unto all my listeners and myself. My name is Akinshola Mikhail Akinyode. I'm a physical therapist, and like he said, I have a doctor of physical therapy. When people say doctor, I feel arrogant, but when they say Imam, I feel humble. So that's the reason. So like I said last week, from the Islamic point of view, it's always prevention because it's better than cure. That is everything Islam does is to prevent. That's why there is a law. So you don't cross this law, so you don't get into this trouble. That is Islam. Well, when they talk about Islamic Sharia. Now, what we are talking about, I listened very well to Dr. Lillian. I think the first problem we have is problem of education. And this education has to start from the children. I'll give you an example. Sometimes in 2005, my children went to Nigeria. They lived in Kaduna for about 18 months. One of them in the classroom, she was in probably third grade or primary 3, something like there. And then there was another girl in her class. I don't know what happened then. The girl hit her. And my child didn't hit back. So she went to talk to the teacher. So when they got back home, she told her aunt, who they were staying with, and the aunt was upset that why she hit you, you have to hit her back. And then they told my wife. My wife was like, you know what? In our own house, in our system here, we don't express our things with our hand. We use our words. So that is where it started. It started from. How do you raise your children? You see, if you want to talk to them too, talk to them with hand or talk to them with mouth. For me, I talk to my children with my eyes. My mother used to say, there are 3 types of children. The children of eye, the children of mouth, and the children of stick. I want you to be children of eye. When they look at you, you understand what they say. And that's how we raise our children too. That is one. Now, again, you see, the Yoruba people where I come from, they are very intelligent people. Actually, one of my uncles used to say, Yoruba is not a language, but a philosophy. When they want their children to marry, the husband will investigate the wife's family. The wife will investigate the to-be husband family to know what kind of problem they have. That is extremely important. We don't do that anymore. I remember when my daughter brought the guy home, I said, you know what? I don't even know you. I don't even know where you come from. How can I give my daughter to you? So we have to know you first. Then we know where you come from. So it's extremely important. I have a friend back at home. One day, this was 1989, she went to tell her father that, this is the guy she wants to marry. And the guy's father and her father, they are friends in the same club. And then the man called my friend, this lady. He said, well, I'm not against you marrying him, but if he is like his father, you know how his father beat his wives? If he is like his father, you're going to get into trouble. So that is what we're saying, that, we have to look deeply into where the child or the son or the daughter is coming from. The last domestic violence in my community here that I was involved with, that was about 2 years ago exactly, probably 3 years. And the guy was, in a graduate program here, in PhD program, and issue happened. The woman, he beat the lady. That's not the first time, not the second time, not the third time. Then the lady called 911, called police, and then they came and I have to go and bail him. It was just a mess. But when he graduated and his mother came from Nigeria, then God forgive me. Then I know where his problem was. When I just saw me looking at his mother, I know where the problem came from. After that, then I spoke with the father, and the father confirmed what I saw. So start from home. Know who you want to marry to. If they have history of violence in their home, find out. So you don't get into trouble before, you don't get into trouble before you start again. Again, we talk about mental issue. What leads to all this is probably anger. Anger. And there's no human being doesn't get angry. The most important thing is how you manage your anger. That is the most important thing. The Messenger of Allah sallam, said that say what is good or keep your mouth shut. Like the CEO said the other time, that some people, the men's words are even sharper than sword cutting you. So in Islam, the Messenger of Allah advises us, say what is good or you keep short. That's it. Kul khair aw yasmut. Say what is best or you keep your mouth shut. So there's no point hurting ourselves with our words. That is another point. Again, I want to say that we should not wait to see the pattern before we cry out. Domestic violence does not happen just one time. It starts a pattern from what we learned. It could have started gradually and then get worse and worse and worse and worse. So when you are stating the beginning, seek for help. Okay, that's why people like us in the religious sect, religious faction, could be your pastor, could be your reverend, could be your imam, could be your mosque. Talk, speak out, speak out, speak out. It's extremely important that we talk. And then before we talk too, we have to be able to trust somebody that we can talk to so that they don't expose what we call our quote unquote secret. That shouldn't be a secret. To abuse somebody should not be a secret. But in the society we came from, that is how it is. Now, again, we have to be careful because in Africans, among the Africans, especially those who are here, I've seen 1, 2, about 3, 4 cases. The husband and the wife, they are here. There is an issue. Then the wife took to the law. And then the husband now went back to the family of the wife at home and disciplined the brother, disciplined them at home, and they didn't know. I'm like, God, why in the world will you do that? Yeah, because he sponsored the lady to come here. He sent her to school. He did this, and then their parents are supporting her. Then he went back at home, even though the lady's been taking care of her. But he went to take his revenge on the family at home. All these are very wrong. It's extremely wrong. Now, from the Islamic point of view, the Quran admonishes us that if you fear, it has not even happened. Like I said, everything in Islam is prevention. If you fear, there is going to be problem between the two. Then then raise people who are wise, understanding, intelligent from her family. Raise people who are wise, intelligent, understanding from his family. Let them come as an arbiter between them. And if both of them, that's what the Quran says, if both of them want peace, then God will bring peace among them. If both of them want peace, God will bring peace among them. And if they don't want peace, they can go their separate way. The Quran says, live with them in harmony and equity, or part with them in harmony and equity. That's it. Live with your spouse in harmony and equity, or part with your spouse in harmony and equity. in peace. So for one to be able to be hammering it on the other in the Islamic that we know, that I know, it's not like that, though even though Muslims do it every day. Then again, when we talk of the strength, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was reported to have asked his companion one day that, who is a strong person? And then the companion replied that the one that throws the other person during wrestling is the strong person. He smiled. He said, no, a strong person is the person that is very angry. His eyes are red, his hair on his skin are very standing. And at the same time, he has the power to punish whoever he's angry with. There he swallow his anger. That is the strong person. That is the strong person. So that is what we know in our own Islam. That's why when people come to me, I say, why can't you leave? You are the man. Take your car, just drive away. That is what the Messenger of Allah did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the wife were battling and there was problem in his household, he left the house for them for a month. Yeah, he left the house for a month. Then you resolve your issue. So that's what you should, that's our example. That's what we should do. When it is hot, then leave. It can't be hot forever. Then you're going to come down, then you come back. So that is it. And all of us too, we see that we have child support in this community in the West. Child support is not a Western idea. Child support is a Quranic idea, for those who don't know. Quran is the first book on earth that says when you divorce the woman has children for you. The upbringing and taking care of that children is your responsibility, is the Quran. So therefore, if it is the fear of the woman that, okay, if I leave, who's going to take care of my children? If the man fears God, he fears God, he fears his Lord, and he knows his deen, his religion very well, the responsibility of the children and to some extent of the woman still rests with him until the children are matured. That is what we know in Islam. So that should not be fair at all. Then again, the Quran always admonishes us that you are from one another, whether you like it or not. We are from one another. We are from the same tree. If you hurt your wife, maybe in 20 generations back, maybe you are from the same person, the same mother and father, you don't know. So you are hurting yourself indirectly. So then again, we have heard from Dr. Lillian that we should be supportive. We must have support group. So when it happens, because for us, when it started little by little, they will call us, we go and talk to them. But when we see that this is getting out of hand, then we have to bring one out. It's okay. Give yourself some room for some time. If you give yourself some room, maybe things will calm down. If things doesn't calm down, then you go further and then go to the law. For us, we have to try our best first before we, give them go to the law. This is out of our hand. We talk to you, we talk to her, we talk to him, we talk to her. We are not getting anywhere. Then go. So, but from our own perspective as Muslim, we don't want family to disintegrate. We always want family to be together. But when it's out of our hand, then say, well, God, you see, we have tried everything we could do. Then again, the Quran tells us that your wife is your garment, just like you are garment to them. Look at us now. The garment, our clothes, beautify us. That is what a spouse is supposed to do to another spouse. But you don't want to tear that garment because you expose your shame. So then again, one of the way of preventive of what we are talking about, some women, they use sex as a weapon. Women use sex as a weapon. It's a problem. Because in this country, from what we read in the literature and from what we know, two things causes problem in the house: money and sex. Money and sex. The aspect of the money, in Islam, a woman has 100% right to do whatever she wants to do with her money. 100%. Unfortunately, man doesn't have that 100% because it's your responsibility to house her, to clothe her, and to feed her. Those are the three things that Allah has given a man to do: to house her, to clothe her, and to feed her to your best ability. She can do whatever she wants to do with her own money. But does that mean that she cannot help you? Sure, she can if she wants to help you. My wife helps me all the time in the household. So that is it. So when the issue of money is not there, then don't be stingy, with your spouse. She has the right to do with her money whatever she wants to do with it. That is what Islam says. I'm talking from Islamic point of view. And again, Islamic point of view is that woman, don't use yourself as a weapon. You see, in Islam, we know that the sexuality of a man is physical. Sexuality of a woman is mental. That's why the Quran says you can approach your guardian, because your wife is like your guardian. And when we look at what is the meaning of guardian? A guardian is not where weed grow. No, if you don't attend to your garden, weed is going to grow there. So if you want to have a garden, you have to attend to that garden all the time, every time. That is how a wife is described to a husband in the Quran. It's your guardian. You can approach your guardian, but make provision beforehand. Make provision. Make provision is to prepare her mentally. Because in the Sharia, you cannot copulate with a woman that is not happy. No, you can't. That is Sharia. It is forbidden. A woman that is angry, is not happy, you can't copulate with her. So that's why the Quran says that approach your guardian the way you want, but make provisions ahead of time. Make her want you. And we know that woman's sexuality is mental. She has to be mentally prepared. Like my wife will tell me, for me, sex don't start in bed. It doesn't start in bed. And I say it everywhere, and she doesn't like me saying that. I'm like, you told me that I'm not lying. That's what you said to me. So women, we should not use sex as a weapon. It causes problem. When you know something causes problem, why do you have to do it anyway? So that is what another person said before me. Then last but not the least, is that everything we do, we as Muslims, we have no helper except God. We have no one to turn to except God. If there's a problem, we run to God. If things are going good, if things are going excellently, we run to God to thank Him and to be grateful to Him. If things are going the wayward way, the negative way, we run to Him. God, come and help us. Settle our home, settle our family, and please put your love in our heart. That is what we call prayer. So thank you very much. That's where I'm going to stop for now. I don't know if anybody have more contribution or question. Thank you, Dr. O. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, wow. Dr. Lillian is ready. And you have a question. I'm going to throw the first question to you. It's been waiting for a long time. I know Dr. Bill is looking like, when is she going to ask? He said, clarify the case where the partner is of legal status, who is suffering abuse. What rights do they have?
Okay, so I did answer that on the thing. I actually put a link to that information already. So yes, they have protect.
Well, I usually would ask these questions because it's for the benefit of everybody.
Everybody, people who are not in the chat. Okay, yes. So for people who are not in the chat, there's a link there. People who are watching us who can't see the link. If you go to USCIS, you can, or you just type in U visa. The U visa is a provision of the Violence Against Women's Act. And there are provisions that if the spouse meets, okay, so there are criteria that you have to meet to show your eligibility. Not just that you're unhappy in your marriage and you want out, and then you come and say that it doesn't work that way. There are criteria you have to meet, evidence you have to provide. And once you meet all of those criteria, you're able to change your status. Because what happens is it's not so much of the fact that you're illegal, but that your spouse, who's the person abusing you, put you in that position. Sometimes people come here, they bring them on fiancé visa, as it were, and because they want to abuse them and oppress them, they would refuse for them to renew their visas so that they go out of status. So you did come into the country legally, but your spouse has allowed you to go out of status because they wanted to use your immigration status to threaten you. Or you didn't even know the right visa to apply for, and they deceived you and they told you, that, oh, just coming on the visitor's visa, it's okay, you can stay. And then you're coming on a visiting visa and you've overstayed. But it's by no fault of yours. It's due to the fact that they misinformed you, or they allowed your visa to expire and they allowed you to go out of status, and they're keeping you, they've taken your passport, they didn't let you go for your appointment and things like that. And you can provide all of those information working with an attorney or working with a domestic violence service provider. They can petition for you, and you don't need them. Usually you need your spouse to petition for you. But if the person is abusing you, they're using that to threaten you. They're threatening you with deportation. And so if you can provide all of that evidence, you can file without that spouse and you can get your residency regularized.
Thank you so much. Sister Tinu?
Yeah.
Ma'am.
Yeah, I just want to buttress Dr. Lillian's point.
Okay, go ahead.
The last domestic violence that I got involved with, the guy, is, like I said, he was a PhD student here at UF in Gainesville, Florida, and then the wife had maybe F4 or something like that. So the wife couldn't work, something like that. So that was an issue. But I'm happy to say that today, they are separated. The sister has the 2 kids with her. She lives somewhere, and then she has a permanent residency. So I just want to say that. So
and thank you. And Imam, something you did not say in your conversation is that you are actually exceptional. You have taken several people into your home, private home, because of domestic abuse, and kept them there for safekeeping until solutions are
that is true, until we find shelter for them. We should not think that maybe this is happening among maybe this religious group or these people. It's cut across. It's cut across, across the aisle. It cuts across the aisle. Abuse happens everywhere. Yes. Everywhere. In fact, we have seen, actually, I don't know, New York, probably about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. Now, this Arab guy, he cut his wife's head off in New York. It's very sad. He's a Muslim, So anyway, we don't have a choice. I'm the Imam, so you are the first person they're going to call when there's problem. So what do we have to do? But we thank God that we can do that. Thank you. I didn't want to mention that.
Thank God. Thank you for all you do. And thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sister Tinu, Dr. Bill said, wonderful info being brought forth by you. In addition to public education, we need to incorporate spiritual education as well. Many are spiritually empty. So I'm very, it's very timely that Imam had spoken some on spirituality, but to, piggyback on that. So I want you to comment. Sister Towers said, do you give this help, the help you mentioned when you talked, when you gave your talk, do you give the help irrespective of state?
Okay, let me answer Sister Tawa first. Hello, Auntie. So if you, because of the way it is, America, not Nigeria, not anywhere else, in the US, this is the reason why attorneys can't practice in every state, even if you're licensed in a particular state, because each state has its own style and forms, terms, conditions, requirements in their own law that is it may not be too much different from the other. For example, even DC, Maryland, and Virginia, they're supposed to be in the same territory. And us in Maryland, we, except for attorneys, of course, we assume erroneously that Maryland law is the same as DC law or Virginia law. Nothing can be further from the truth. So what I'm saying is, when it comes to domestic violence is one of those issues and laws that are domestic, just as it sounds, that are pertinent, specific to each state. So I can help an abused, a victim out of state, not to be like, not to go into that state to perhaps litigate on her behalf, but I can advocate for her, as in I can help her to fill the form. Of course, she will have to go there and get the form, or I can pull it up from wherever I am, because some of the court documents are on virtual, electronic. So I can do that. But the part that regardless of where you are, is the immigration piece, which is under VAWA. VAWA is a federal government policy, rules, and act. So anything that, any law that is under the federal government, regardless of your location, can be applied. So what am I saying? Immigration law, maritime law, federal transportation issues like that. Bankruptcy, they are federal laws. So anyone sitting anywhere can help to resolve that. So I can assist someone who is in New York or in California to put in an immigration application. Although I always say that because, of course, human, physical, some of us love to be physical with our professionals, you want to see and maybe come to the presence of whoever attorney is helping you every once in a while. So it's okay to have someone who resides in your state, but you can also have someone who is further from you. But that would only be based on the immigration part. So if you're filing for your application or you want to regularize yourself based on the domestic violence as postulated by Dr. Lillian, that can be done wherever you are. But I have to also tell you that in addition to what she puts forward as maybe conditions, even if you're out of status totally, or if you've never even had status other than, okay, you are here for to visit. And of course, some of us, we like to come over, stay over. You both already know that, oh, I'm staying over and we're still getting married and all that. It's not so much about how you get here, really, but it's also about what your abuser is doing to you. Like she rightly said, Dr. Lillian, your passport has been seized. You are not allowed to work, even though, in fact, some people want you to come and babysit or do something for them, even give you money under the table. So you're not allowed that. You are physically confined. That could be something else, false imprisonment. But just taking it out of tortious law, let's put it in domestic violence situation. So all those things culminated together is what helps you to have your case weightier, that you can present under VAWA. And having said that, I hope I answered that, domestic versus federal, which is immigration. But in a nutshell, if you are experiencing or know someone who is experiencing domestic violence, the legal thing to do is go to get help in the state where you are. But if you are not safe, there are so many resources that you can have. There is a crisis hotline, the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, they have their hotline. National Center for Victims of Crime, they do theirs. Office of Violence Against Women, that is the VAWA. This is federal government office. There is the CDC also, because they actually talk more on intimate partners. And then you have for the teen dating abuse. Of course, teenagers, they are intimate part, they could be in an intimate relationship too, but there'll be more on that maybe next week. There's so many resources, that one can get. That is 1-800. So regardless of where you are, so they will now tell you the local office that you need to call. So that, I want to say something about, okay, I don't want to say, because Doctor, you're going to be reading the question, so I don't want to jump ahead of you. But the only other thing.
Let me take this. Let me go to the next person, because somebody just.
Thank you, Sister Tinu.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask if your question was answered, ma'am.
Yes, thank
Before
you.
we get drowned in something else. Thank you. So my brother, all the way from Chicago, Brother Donald Walker, go ahead, unmute yourself. You are muted. Unmute. Still muted. There you go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Just like Dr. O said, my name is Donald Walker, all the way from Chicago. I'm glad to be here for being invited by Dr. O for this opportunity. I think I came late, but I've been able to listen to some of the speakers, and they have spoken well. This platform is a good thing. I just want to touch on one thing. I think Dr. Lillian said something about stigma, which is very important in African culture, because sometimes we kind of like not emphasizing so much on this, because when we're talking about stigma to divorce, mental health, in Africa, we look at it differently. But it's a problem here that is very pronounced. But, one thing I understand is that when we say, when somebody in a relationship, husband and wife, before they become married, this guy must have been good, or the wife must have been good. That's why when they're going through courtship, dating each other, they must have complimented each other on good things, on good behavior. But when one or the other become a monster in one thing because of the behavior, I think what's the problem is that cause when there's disagreement, then there's going to be a problem. So I think according to the popular saying, when a problem is identified, it's already half solved. So when there's a disagreement and this guy want to be a control freak, or want to be a try to exercise his authority over the wife, or the wife the other way, then is that what we say the love is blind? So the love is blind to the point that we don't understand this is a problem. So first impression lasts longer, as they say. When you identify a problem first, the first time this guy is unusually behaving some kind of way, you have to stop it right there. You can talk about it and say, hey, honey, you know what? This is quite becoming on of you. You are becoming unbecoming in the way you are behaving and all that. Can we talk about this? And if the guy, because of his ego or arrogance and all that, you want to say, no, you can't. So then there's a problem right here. We have to tackle right away. We cannot tolerate because of love. That means we have used love to blind ourselves, to blind our focus on what relationship. And guess what? It's not going to get solved. It's going to escalate. And when it escalates to the point where we are thinking that divorce is the solution, we should not hesitate. We should not say, oh, you know what? Because of the stigma in the society, I've been married for 20 years. I've been married for 30 years. Now what is going to become of me? People looking at me some kind of way that I'm a failure. It is better to be failure in this kind of aspect for you to lose your life. Because guess what? If you continue to tolerate this behavior and it escalates to a mammoth proportion where you think that this guy will kill, just like Imam said, somebody's head was cut off in New York just because this woman has been tolerating the man for quite some time that we don't know. So why do you have to say because of stigma? I don't want people to typify me or say me, I'm a failure in my marriage. I have, grown kids already in their own marriage. And if I leave this guy, people will look at me as a failure. No, it's better to leave that marriage, to stay alive, than for you to be killed by this guy who is a control freak, who doesn't want to budge whether when he's telling what he says, you have to abide to it. So, and also the other way we have to look at it is that it could degenerate into a mental problem, where I work in the emergency room and ICU, and I see a lot of people come in and they come in with, mental health. Sometimes we kind of underestimate the significant proportion of what it could lead to. When somebody say, I'm depressed. This person has not been depressed for some time. It was never depressed before, but because of certain situation in the marriage, they become depressed because they have been bottling in the problem. They have not been talking about it. They have not been finding their voice. Some often we have our mouth, we have the voice, but we cannot express ourselves. So this is a problem. So if you cannot talk about it, then you are bottling everything in, you are tolerating this guy, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be depressed because you don't want to talk about it. And when you are depressed, what do we know about depression in our society from African perspective? Oh, you're depressed, you have mental problem? Are you serious? So this is the stigma that we're talking about. So you stay married and you are depressed. But guess what's going to happen? Your depression is going to escalate to the proportion where you would think that, taking your life is the best solution. Why do you have to kill yourself because you are depressed? Because you are dealing with symptoms of depression because of a guy or because of the man or the woman in a relationship, and then you are not getting help. You are not seeking help because if you are not telling somebody, you are not relating to your friends or your neighbor about what's going on in your marriage, guess what's going to happen? The depression will prolong, and when you get to that point where you think taking your own life is the solution, it's not reversible at that point. No medication will be enough to reverse that depression because guess what? The antidepressant medication that we give to patients, it has a rebound effect. It once after 3 months, they are done, they feel fine, but guess what? It rebounds and it comes back and you feel more depressed. So before we lead ourselves to that point, it is better, to create this awareness about stigma. There's nothing bad about stigma because we know even in the Bible, in the 1 Corinthians 13:4, it says, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy or boast, love is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. So it is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing. So where do we have to come in here? If Bible says all this about love, love is not rude. When a guy is rude to you or your wife is rude to you, so that means, is that a love? You continue because of love. Love does not hurt. So even though you are patient, but guess what? If you allow and you tolerate this, it will escalate to a proportion that you will not be able to, bear anymore. It becomes unbearable. And when you get to that level, you don't want to seek it because you are thinking about the stigma. People will say, oh yeah, so people look at us outside that we are a good couple, but inside the house, this guy is a monster to you. But you don't want to come out because you're afraid of stigma. It's dangerous. And at the same time, it will lead to death. So this is the reason why we need to create awareness about it is okay for us to divorce. There are many people who stay married for 30 years, but at the end of the day, when the guy or the woman does not behave in any other way, they divorce after 30 years. There's nothing bad about that. So you stay separated and you maintain your life instead of staying in a marriage because of love. Love stop blind unless we use love to blind ourselves to things that we're supposed to avoid. So that's my case, ma'am. Thank you.
Woo! Thank you so much. Abby in the platform said, you are speaking. Forget stigma, choose life.
Yes.
Hope that. Ms. Natasha Brookshire said, the height of danger for abused women is when, let me reread that. The height of danger for an abused woman is when she is leaving her abuser. This is when she needs the most support. You spoke, you're right, and I'm going to ask Sister Tinu or Imam to respond in a minute. However, it's not that easy. That's why we're having this forum. I have seen a lot of abused people actually becoming the defender of their abuser. Sometimes it's financial, like Imam mentioned. Sometimes it's, I think Sister Tinu, Dr. Lillian have mentioned that also, that there are factors, nowhere to go. It could be immigration issues, that this man is now, or woman is now using that as an oppressive measure. The person not having green card or something. Then when children are involved, it could be, oh my gosh, how do I take care of these children? What do I do? There are lots of things that inhibits the abuse to move out. That's why we were challenged. And Dr. Fawole, I saw her respond that we accept the challenge, that we need to be each other's blind spot. When you notice that somebody, Sister Tinu honed in on that very, very hard. I don't know if you were here then, that if you know somebody who was bubbly and all of that, and you don't see them anymore, or they're not that bubbly again, you need to go after them. Have love enough to go after them, because they usually will not tell you right away. You may have to, probe and show that you're really interested to know what is going on. And then you can be a source of help to help them to get assistance. Sister Tinu talked a lot about moving somebody to shelter. Imam accommodates some people before you can get them to shelter and all, because they don't know where to go. So people just cannot hop and leave. Sister Tinu, please comment on that before I go to the next thing on the
Actually, Doctor, you said so much, and I was going to say that, hey, you are becoming this expert too. Dr. Lillian, I have to give you a second doctorate degree on this, because you actually put it together really well. And I don't think there will be any other thing that I can add at that level, because you've touched about what factors come into play, especially when the victim, you're expecting the victim to get out of the house. And I always say this, please, if you're a woman or a man, your sister, your friend, or anyone that is going through abuse, please never throw it into their face and saying, why are you still there? Why are you staying? Because it's not that easy for you to remove yourself. And Dr. O, you rightly pointed out those factors that are really things that abusers, especially if they are women, they are thinking, they may have young children, they may never have worked before, never have even gone out of the home outside the company of the husband or the spouse, either way, especially for someone who came into this country knowing that, I don't have any leg to stand on in terms of the legal document. So you're claiming from that spouse. So you will be thinking, where do I start from? You may not even have kept a dime on your own. Like, of course, you are not working anyway, so you don't earn. And for some people who earn, they just hand over their paycheck or do electronically transfer into the joint account or the account of the abuser, 100% of that money, and you are not keeping anything for yourself. So all those things are the things that you're thinking about, that you need to factor before you remove yourself. In fact, having a resource, someone who is your friend, a bystander approach, like I said, a friend or anyone outside that you think you can trust. But the truth is, abuse victims, like Dr. O rightly said, they set up a defense for the abuser, actually. And not only that, they would not come to you unless you are someone who is actually spiritually discernible. You can discern spiritually that something is amiss I used to do that when I was at a church that I went for almost 18 years. You know, the Spirit of God would just lead me to someone and we are talking, but they need to earn your trust before they can open up. So that is that, but
Yes,
there are so many factors.
On the same issue, I want Dr. Lillian, kindly unmute. Thank you so much, Sister Tinu, for buttressing that. Sister Dr. Lillian.
So I'm sorry about that. I wanted to say that I think what Natasha was saying, that the height of danger is when a person leaves the abusive situation. So we may be very familiar with cases of murder, suicide, where the person leaves and doesn't just leave, but kills the person and takes their own lives. And why it's dangerous for when the person is leaving the situation is that person has been living a charade. Okay, they've lived all their life having this quote unquote slave, and you come and you say you no longer want to be the slave and you want to go. Not only do they have no problem with taking their own lives, they have no problem with taking your own life. Okay, sometimes these people don't kill this spouse and run away. They're there, they can kill you and sit down and wait for the cops. And when the cop comes, they go to jail, but the point is they've also killed you. And so when we're telling people to leave, that's why it's also good to let the professionals talk to people. You can't just leave. You have to have an exit plan. The people who have left their abusers couldn't get to them, have gone to kill their parents or kill their co-workers or different things like that. There's a book of why does he do what he does, you know, and where the person was afraid of her estranged partner and used to go to work with her co-workers, 3 of them. And the day the man was going to kill her and the 2 co-workers together. Like, okay, yes, you know. So it's not enough to just say, just leave. There has to be like an exit plan, a strategy. You have to know that you're safe, not just the person being safe themselves, but their loved ones being saved as well. And be very aware that by the time you're beginning to say, no, enough of this, your abuser may have no reservations about taking you out, even if they have to take themselves out as well.
Thank you so much. These are real life situations. It's true.
Doctor, can I add quickly to that?
Please, go ahead.
So, Dr. Lillian, they actually do this more than anybody, any other professional. And when I used to work at Family Crisis Shelter, we had this through the Maryland National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. We had this lipstick-like object. It's actually, when you pull it or when you twist it, it comes up like a scroll. That is the plan of action, the exit strategy that Dr. Lillian just mentioned, okay? So there are so many things that they advise women or men who are going through abuse, one after the other, what they need you to think about, where you put it. You know, like last week we alluded to this fact actually, that you may have look for your certificates, you know, just so you are able to find a job. We have resources for that. They will look for a job for you. And also transitional housing. I used to actually go before the Prince George's County Transitional Housing Department to help some of the women who are in shelter, but of course, shelter is temporary home. So the board will help them to find something more permanent, even if it's not for too long a term. You know, stuff like that are written on that scroll-like object that will prepare the women. So they can't just remove themselves like that. And they also have to be ready in their mind, because you cannot tell a spouse to leave the other when she's really not ready. And that goes to saying that, how do we deal with this? We deal with this when you're actually even counseling or anything. No, we're doing it on different fronts. there is a spiritual part and there is the professional part. One does not cast out the other. So you have to do one and the second. So it's not just religious, we counsel in church, we do it in mosque, but the legalist part really have to be done, especially when the abuse is intensified and consistent, because that is what separates abuse, domestic violence from let's get a divorce. Oh, we cannot live together anymore based on some other issues, adultery and everything. So there you have it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Dr. O. I don't know if you still want me to talk.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Now, I will just mention three things. Two from practical experience, from personal experience. Then one, you see, when people go into marriage, there must be a reason for them to go into marriage. Just don't go into marriage. There must be a reason. So if you go into marriage, like in Islam, we say Lillahi wa Rasuli, for God and for his messenger, that's why you are married. So in our mind, it's like everything we get in that marriage is okay, because we are doing it for God and for God only. Now, when people come to me like that, no, God wants us to stay married. He doesn't like divorce, but he permits it. So he permits it in the sense that in a situation like this, things bad will happen. So sometimes you have to think outside the box. You want to do it for God. At the same time, you want to go out of these two for God, because it's only when you are alive that when you can continue to serve God. When you are paralyzed or you are not healthy, how can you serve God? That is one reason. So those are one of the reasons why it could be very difficult for us as religious leaders to convince some other people when you see the situation is very bad, even though we try to do everything to prevent, to keep the family together. That is one. Now, number two, there was a sister, that is a friend of another sister, and she was going through all this very stupid thing in her relationship. And then we call her, sister, all these normal people don't do this. Normal human being, normal. Then at the end of the day, she saw what we saw, but she said, well, you know what? The sex is good. I'm like, what? Yes, that was her defense. That is one. Then another person, then she came and we were talking, and you know what? I don't want to count anybody that I've seen my nakedness on my finger. I'm like, what? So all these kind of excuses are what we see. So, but when you go deep, when you think about it deeply, like I said, the Islamic scholars, they said woman's sexuality is mental. So what is inside here it's going to take forever to get it out. That's why I talk to my other colleague imams. When we talk, we know from the spiritual point of view, but I encourage myself and them too that, you know what, let us too go and get some degree in family counseling. So just to support what Sister Tinu has said, the spiritual part and then the normal legal part. So those are things I have to say. So that's the excuse we get from some people. The sex is good. I don't want to count people I've seen my naked. That's it. This is practical experience. This is what I heard. It was like talking one-on-one.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing those. These are life situations. They are. So to Brother Walker, Dr. Bill said, thank you for your words. However, it is important that we, through whatever means necessary, begin to understand via self-actualization that negative thoughts outside of us, which are directed to us, is nothing more than water flowing off a duck's back. To be depressed by these thoughts is about us thinking in limited ways. And as true as that is, we all different and we have different strengths. So some people can get through this and words don't hurt them. Some internalize, and it doesn't make one person better than the other. What is more important, I think, is that when there is domestic violence, that a strategic plan is put in place for exit, for safety. Dr. Lillian Adeyegbe just posted a link. She posted a link in the chat box. So you can click on that. She says, this man killed himself and his 2 sons, blew up his house. Just living may be logical, but it may not always be safe. People need to know and plan their exit. That is the truth. We have to do this, with smarts, with brains. It's not that easy. And the antidepressants work. Mental health is huge in these situations. When somebody needs to be on medication, even if it's situational for a period of time, or if this is it, they have to be on it, it works. The problem with the antidepressants we have is that it takes a good 6 weeks to get good in the body. It doesn't rebound. In fact, we have tests now, like the gene site testing, and I'm not promoting any company. It is just the fact. It's been a life changer in many lives, because just by swiping inside the chicks and testing, they use the DNA to test what medications, mental health medications, pain medications and stuff that would work for you. Not for your mom, not for your brother, your DNA. And so the right medication can be picked. And in our culture, it is important that we start addressing this issue of mental health, especially, in these situations too. Sometimes it takes medications. The medications work. We just have to pick the right ones. So Sister Lovetta said, no person must allow themselves to be abused by anyone. Emotional, sexual, financial, or physical abuse. I agree. Stop domestic violence. Please, if you are on this forum and you're going through this, reach out. We have resources. Reach out, please. Dr. Craig piggybacked on that, buttressed that. He said, there is never a reason for anyone at any time to lay their hands on someone else, period. That is true. But it's, even beyond the physical abuse is the laying of hands. People should not be beating on each other. Emotional abuse, words of mouth, mental abuse should not be in a relationship. It is not love. Dr. Akinyode said a lot of marriages have turned combative and ultimately ended in divorce simply because the wife started sneaking into her husband's phone, browsing through texts and calls, and confronting the man based on suspicion alone. Isn't secretly searching your husband's phone an abuse? It's absolutely abuse. For me, in my opinion, it is abuse. You have no business in that man's phone. No man has a business in my phone. There's no reason why people should be looking into each other's phone. For what? That is not love. That is dictatorship. That is abuse. That is, in my opinion, it is impinging on somebody's privacy. It is the same thing when, I've heard people say, you cannot rape your wife. Yes, you can. She's your wife, but that doesn't give you the authority to just barge in and barge out. No, you can. As Imam said it, that you have to love the woman. You have to prep the woman. But the woman too should not use sex as a tool of abuse. Yes, I agree with that. But probing into people's phones is impinging on somebody's privacy. Mind your own. Pray. If the man is cheating on you, the Lord will reveal it. It's too stressful even. That creates stress on its own and can even cause anxiety, can cause other mental health issues, even for you, the abuser in this case. Sister Tinu, you have your hand raised. Please unmute.
Yes, on the same subject you're talking about. When you started, You got me thrown off. But then when you went to the last part, then I was cheering you. And
Wait a
what
minute,
was that?
wait a minute. Before you even go on, Sister Lovetta here said, browsing through a partner's phone or computer is controlling behavior. I believe that leads to abuse. It is abuse. All right. Everyone has rights to privacy. They do. Go ahead.
Yes, yes. And I was going to say that it's invasion of privacy. It's not an abuse. And I say that because merely doing that, I wrote it down when somebody was saying it, when I even read it. Merely phone searching without more is not abusive. It is called invasion of privacy.
In law.
In law, because
in law.
Let me continue on this note. I have talked about two words, the intensity and the frequency of slapping, of shoving, of abusive or oral put down of words, degrading words, and whatever you do that is causing that other person to be violated or abused borders on two things, intensity and frequency. And that is why when Brother Walker was talking about, Donald Walker was talking about if your relationship is toxic and all that, yes, that is where there is a cop out. And of course, even the Bible gave us that cop out. You can divorce. So that is divorce at that level. That has taken it out of domestic violence. But when it comes to the physical part, the oral part, the mental, the psychological piece, the intensity and the frequency is what we look at, okay? And I also want to say that no means no. In support of you, Dr. O, this is the slogan in the domestic violence world. When a woman or a man says no, please know that it's no. Of course, biblically, scripturally, spiritually, even according to the Quran, the spouses must not withhold body from each other. But for some reason, perhaps she or he says, no, you shouldn't force, because that is taking it out of the spiritual context to the legal context. No means no, otherwise you are raping. That's it.
Thank you, Sister Tinu. I have a question. You said intensity is what you look at. So you're telling me that if somebody is hitting on somebody and it's only once a quarter, that's okay?
See, doctor, for you saying a quarter, that means it's frequent. It's more than once.
Okay, frequent is more than once.
Yes.
Thank you. Got that. Okay, I can live with that. But one is enough. But thank you for that clarity.
Really, once is enough. But
Yes,
in a relationship, let's assume you've been in a relationship for over 10, 15 years, and this man or this woman have never hit or done anything that is truly classified as DV. You can talk about it. But when it intensifies, when this same person is the one that puts you down every time, you're no good anyway. You can't even read that, with all those derogatory manner and words launched out at you, intensity, frequently. That is the.
I haven't seen where somebody has been married for 35 years and they start. It has been continuous. It may continue to intensify, but it's always been there.
And that's why I said if it's consistent.
No, I agree with that.
Okay.
No, I take your definition. When you said intensity, I thought maybe it has to be frequent. No, I get it. I'm just saying that when you made the example of 35 years of marriage, no, this thing has been there. It's, Dr.
I mean, even the victim may not make it that far if it's consistent.
Well, they do. They make it, they tolerate, especially in our culture. It is accepted because even if they run back to their parents will take them back to that man's home, that there's no divorce. So culture is huge. We talked about that last week. So Dr. Lillian, just sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to say, Brother Donald, you weren't here last week. Culture, your culture does not allow a woman to leave, no matter what. Your culture will say, get back to that man's home. She runs to her parents, they take her back. And that's why we're talking about this, because no woman should be subjected to that. No man also should be subjected to that. There has to be intervention. While I don't support divorce, I don't think a woman should stay one more day in an abusive relationship. I think they should be removed and intervention had. So Dr. Lillian said, we teach healthy relationships. Disagreements can and must occur. They do not need to result in violence. Secretly searching your husband's phone may be inappropriate, but it does not constitute abuse in itself. Okay, that's what you are saying. If the woman secretly searching the husband's phone is weaponizing her findings and uses them to intimidate or threaten the husband, those actions can be considered abusive. Thank you, Dr. Lillian. Because, look, let's face it, that's what he ends up being. And it's not just the woman, the man also. That's what he ends up being. He ends up being abused. It should not be done. Dr. Bill said, sadly, as we bring forth those who are generations behind us, as we educate, train, and each with love and kindness, this is not a society that respects those who turn the other cheek. Isn't that sad? Because what the Bible teaches is you turn the other cheek. And, you know, I still believe in that. I messed up woefully. Sister Tinu will not agree with me that I messed up woefully in the last 2 days where this is concerned. But I think I did. She won't agree, I know, but I think I did. And but Dr. Bill, you're right. It's hard to turn the other cheek. Sometimes it is hard, but we should work at it. Well, he also said, well, I must understand the reference of mate as a garment. That's to Imam. He says, while I might understand the reference of mate as a garment, and to tear the garment is revelatory in a negative way, when I remove my garment, I am proud of what is revealed. So I understand it because you accept your body, you accept who you are. But the Imam was talking in the context of respecting a woman and protecting the woman. When you put a garment on somebody to cover them is protection. And that's in the context that he was talking from the Quran standpoint. There are lots of thank yous and appreciation to all of you speakers on this platform. And Sister Natasha brought the point up again that a woman's sexuality is not only mental. Okay, so Imam, that's for you. She says a woman's sexuality is not only mental, it is also physical and emotional. Women enjoy sex as much as men. And she's right on point.
Yeah, what the scholars are saying is that if a man wants to have, for a man to have intimacy, love has nothing to do with it. Now, for a woman to have intimacy, love must have something to do with it, unless you are Olosho. If you are not, you cannot open your leg to somebody you don't have an affection for. So that is what the scholar meant by woman sexuality is mental. We are not saying mental only. No. So she has to be prepared mentally. Her body has to be ready. Otherwise, she's going to be in pain. So that is what they are trying to say, that is mental. But a man doesn't have to be mentally prepared. He's ready anytime. That is the nature of man, because his is just physical. Boo, 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 boo. Then he's gone. That's it. But no, there. Anyway, we don't have to go to that area. There are so many times a woman will just relieve himself, and the woman is still expecting something.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Sister Natasha.
Let me ask a question. Thank you so much.
You can.
Those scholars, I would love to know if they were all male, one. And then two, it is part of the denigration of women to say that for a woman to be sexually aroused and want to have intercourse with someone, it has to be, oh, she's in love with this person. No, a woman can have sex with someone, enjoy it, and not necessarily be in love. That could lead to love sometimes. That is true. But a woman is just as physical as a man. So a lot of times these sexual studies are done to keep women in their place. And it's okay for a man to be in touch with his sexuality, but not for a woman. And if she is and is not in love, then she's like, doesn't have self-respect. So that's another way to put women down, even as it appears that you're elevating women.
I cannot agree with you more. But before you respond,
okay.
Imam and Sister Natasha, thank you, because you wrote some things on the platform. I was so excited when you raised your hand because you can put it all together. I was excited. So Imam, before you respond, I want to just piggyback on my sister Natasha to say that last week you said it, that women's feelings are mental. And I think Sister Tinu and I jumped at you that it's the heart. It's the heart. And, and that, women want to be loved is what we want. So Sister Natasha has buttressed that and then brought in other aspects that we as human, as men are. So now you can comment, because now you have three women agreeing against you. Go ahead.
Well, in the first place, everybody's entitled to his or her opinion. That is one. Then number two, we have to know that we are coming from the Islamic point of view. In Islam, a woman is raised in so high pedestal, that a woman is like diamond, it's like gold. Because all a woman, what Islam wants for a woman is to nurture her, because she is the one that populates the society. The woman is a city. That's why in Islam, a man can marry a non-Muslim woman, but Islam forbids a Muslim woman to marry a non-Muslim man, because we are taking a city out of the city. So if we don't understand this, if we don't understand that, then we will have a problem. You see, everybody can understand what they want to understand. What I understand is in Islam, because a woman in Islam is not something that can just be bashing here and there, bashing here and there. No, intimacy in Islam is only in marriage, period. Anything outside that is zina. Zina is fornication or adultery. In the Western world, that is nothing. But to us, that is something. Because a woman's privacy needs to be given to somebody who really worth that privacy. That's all I need to say.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sister Natasha is going to get you again. Brother Donald, come on up. You had your hand raised a few minutes ago. Go ahead, unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to go back to the point where Mr. William Craig said we are limited in our thinking. They say it takes two to tango. So before, we have to ask ourselves the question, why do I get married to this guy? And in order to ensure harmony and cordial relationship, there must be a communication. So in an abusive relationship, we lose our voice. How can we communicate to an abusive guy? How can you communicate when somebody is trying to be a control freak over you? How can you communicate when somebody is always disagreeable to you? And they think that, just like Dr. Imam said, everybody's entitled to his opinion. The fact that I'm entitled to my opinion doesn't mean my opinion should be supreme over somebody else's opinion. My opinion is just, I'm entitled to it because it's my opinion. And nobody has to say I'm wrong. I could be wrong, but I have to be, I have to humble myself to listen to other people. There are a lot of divergent views that I have there, but that's why we come together to listen to somebody's opinion and see where we can marry those opinions that are self-opinionated. So if somebody is always disagreeable to you, thinking that, rubbish is your opinion all the time, they are thinking it's very degrading because they are making you to feel that you are not wise, you are stupid. So how can you communicate on that level with that person? So to say that we are depressed, that is the time we cannot find our voice, because the guy is always want to be controlling, always to exercise his authority over us. That's why we cannot find our voice. Sometimes we cannot blame ourselves, but at the same time, we have to blame ourselves that once we see things for the first time, we have to nip it and say, you know what? No, I cannot tolerate this. So you have to engage in a communication with this guy. And if it's not yielding, then what do you have to do? You have to seek for help, because if you perpetuate yourself in that relationship, guess what's going to happen? It's not about depression anymore. You are going on the wrong road. And when it's going to lead to destruction. Not only the marriage that you could have prevented in the first place if you are communicating, when you have engaged that guy, but because it's not giving you the chance, you have to solve the problem right there. If you cannot solve the problem right there, it will escalate. And guess what? Your marriage is not going to be destroyed. Your life may come with it. So harmony, cordial relationship is very important. That's why they say behind a successful man, there is a woman. So it does not mean when we are married, we have to compete. You see, that is the problem. We don't know sometimes. We compete sometimes. We look at our man as, oh yeah, he's the breadwinner. Sometimes we don't want to give that position to the man. If the woman is the other way around, if the woman is the breadwinner in a family, sometimes because of the ego, the man doesn't want to yield to the fact that the woman is the breadwinner of the family. We are not competing. We are just helping each other. That's the reason why we are married, to support each other. So if behind a successful man there is a woman, that means there's a rock behind that man that makes him to. We can look at the case of Alakija in Nigeria. She's the billionaire. She's the most richest person in Nigeria, right? But guess what she does to make harmony, to reign supreme in her family? The husband is a lawyer. She made the husband to be the head of the business. She kisses her husband every day to maintain relationship, correct relationship. They talk, they engage. Think about the other way around. The man may say, oh, you're richer than me. You are pretty more technically, you are the breadwinner of the family. But if the woman was not submissive to the man and didn't say, you know what, my husband, I hold you supreme. I respect you. I honor you. You take care of this. Guess where the other way is going to be? So we're not competing. We're just here to support each other. But you may not find your voice. And that's what leads to depression. It may be you are responsible for you being depressed now because you didn't take care of the situation right from the time it started. So it is true that we may be responsible for our depression, but it could have been avoided. But the reason why it's not done was because there's a communication breakdown. You cannot talk, you cannot engage in a guy who wants to control you. So that is the point. And also, if I may talk about the phone thing, we may say checking husband's phone is not an abuse, but guess what it's going to lead to? It's going to lead to an abuse. Because what is the reason why my wife will be checking my phone? It's because She doesn't trust me. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem. She doesn't trust me. That's supposed to make me feel mentally that after I've been with this woman for 30 years, she doesn't trust me to be looking at my phone when I'm sleeping. When I'm sleeping, she put my face. Maybe I have a password on my phone. I have right to have a password on my phone. That nobody should check it. But if my wife digs behind me and starts to search on my phone, it's an invasion of privacy, but at the same time, it will lead to abuse because I'm thinking mentally it's disturbing me right now that my wife does not trust me after 30 years, and it's making me to feel some kind of way. So if there's no trust, I'm being invaded already, but also I'm being invaded psychologically too. I've been attacked because it makes me to think that every time I want to go home, I'm going somewhere. I told my wife I'm going somewhere. She'll be thinking I'm not going to where I said I'm going. So that's the trust that will lead to the marriage to break down. And when that happens, guess what? I've been abused insidiously. It's not visible, but insidiously, it kind of creeps in just like an abuse, because it started from invasion of privacy, but insidiously it comes in, it crept in, and it's disturbing me because my wife doesn't think I'm trustworthy anymore. And guess what? It will reduce my love, my affection for her. Sometimes I don't even want to engage in anything with her. That's how we're supposed to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm on your page with that because, and it doesn't mean after 30 years. It's anytime.
It's anytime, yeah.
It's anytime. My phone is my privacy.
It's my privacy.
I don't know whatever we can slice that one. For me, there's no way you can slice that one. So I have 3 people here that, Abby, do you want to talk and just put your thoughts together? Abby? Because you disagree with Sister Natasha.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Speak.
I do disagree. Reason I disagree is that, yeah, I understand about there being stereotypes and all that. But like the Imam said, and as a woman, based on my personal experience and based on the experience of women I have counseled over the years, women are wired to be softer, to be more emotional. And, that's why we're shattered. It could be that society stereotyped us to be that way. That could be, I don't know if that's true for most people or not, because what we're talking about here is not every individual female or every individual male. We have some men that are very emotional as well. But I agree with the Imam that the women are more emotional and softer. We tend to do things emotionally. With everything we do, we tend to do it from the heart, whereas the men do it from just being visual with no emotional attachments and all that. From that premise is where I'm talking from. I understand about stereotypes and stuff, but that's what I'm saying.
Thank you so much, Abby. And by the way, that's my biological sister from London. It's God knows what time it is now in London, 2-3 a.m.
Wow.
Thanks, sis. So much appreciate you. Love you.
You're welcome. You're worth it.
Thank you. Sister Natasha, do you want to respond to that? I just want both of you to see.
Yes, I'll say one thing.
Go ahead. Go
Sometimes
ahead.
I'll say this. Thank you for allowing me to speak. And I appreciate your point of view, Ms. Abio. What I would say is this, is that if we look at society and we say, well, let me look at the ghetto. Oh my God, it's all the Black people in the ghettos in America. These Black people, look, there's something wrong with them, right? Instead of looking, what is the system that's causing that we see the effects that we see? Men might not be shattered, but in reality, when a man gets divorced, he is much more shattered than the woman, because the woman is the one who has been keeping the house all along. The man is more lost. I believe that women feel the way they feel, and I'm not saying their feelings are not valid and real, but they also have been conditioned to depend on the man. And it's only recently that we've been more independent. And now you see a change in that. And I think there are more divorce because women are saying, I don't have to put up with this. I can go make my own living, and I can create my home that is peaceful, and I can depend on myself. Would I like to have a person? Yes. But if you can't change your way of thinking and seeing me as less, then no, it's not worth it for me to be in that. Women stayed married because they did not have choices before that were viable for them and their children.
Whew, you're right. I hate to say. And you know what? Scripture, sometimes some churches use certain scripture to oppress women in exactly what you have said. And I'm going to bring Pastor Dr. Ogundipe up in a few minutes to address that for us. Abby, you still have something to say? Go ahead, unmute.
All right, thank you. in response to what I just heard now on divorce, if you've not been divorced, then you may not have that experience. But if you've been divorced as a woman, you will know it's harder for you to pick up your life as opposed to the man that divorced you or you divorced. Because for a man, they may be going through changes within them, but they shake it right off. And before you can blink, they're in another relationship with somebody else, living their lives. But the woman is shattered and not moving on. So,
but is the converse staying in an abusive relationship, domestic violence?
Oh no, don't stay.
Better, because
No
that is the issue we're discussing.
No, I know that. I've stated that. I've stated that in the chat before.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You move on. Don't stay in an abusive relationship. It's not worth it.
So,
but then you're shattered anyways. Whether you stay or not, you're shattered. But you can save your life by kissing that relationship goodbye. Well, I'm talking about emotions, but when we're talking about divorce, you've got to have been through it to know that you can move on with your life. It's easier said than done. It's easier for a man to go on, and that's because they're not into it with their hearts. They move on, they shake it off, they're gone. But a woman is stuck there, especially with children and all that. For a woman, we're wired so very differently. I still repeat that for stereotypes and all that. Yes, that's the way we were brought up to think, but things have changed.
Musadi.
So, sorry, Imam.
Pastor Dr. Ogundipe, sir.
Yeah, okay, bring Pastor on. Hello, boyfriend.
Dr. Adeyegbe, please be ready to put your thoughts together for me after Pastor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. O. Good evening, everyone.
Welcome.
With all said, this is just the little one I'll be able to add to all that we've said. You know, last week we discussed about the issue of traits that is in everyone. But how do we deal with our traits? We all have it, either positive or negative. We all have it. But this is just what I want to give to us. I want to give us this one word from the scripture. It is written in the book of Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. He says, let nothing be done through strife or vain glory, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem other better than themselves.
Sister Natasha, that's your point.
Esteem the other person, esteem your wife, esteem your friend, esteem whosoever better than yourself. We're talking about value here. Value the other person. If you love them indeed. Don't fall in love. May God be with us and help us. So that is just what I would like to add to it. And make sure, because once you esteem the other person.
You are muted, sir. What happened? No volume. You said once you esteem the other person
better than you.
Yes.
That means you have good conscience. You have good conscience. So may God help us so that we can live well for ourselves and for the other person. If you have to love your other person, your neighbor as yourself, and you want to hold on to the word of the Lord, and you want to live well to please God, please esteem the other person better than you. So if you do that, you won't hurt anyone. May God help us and be with us. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, wow. You know, honestly, I think that concludes everything we've been saying. When we esteem, there will be love, there will be peace.
Yeah.
Adeyegbe? Brother Walker agrees. So, Dr. Adeyegbe, where are you, sir?
Can I come in, doctor?
You don't agree? I give you 2 minutes.
I agree. I know. I think
Oh,
I just want to buttress what Dr. Ogundipe said. You know, it's not easy for you to esteem the other person more than you. But sometimes you think it's not easy. But it is easy, because that is if it's not easy, then that'll be the chaos for the relationship. So when you respect the other person, because respect is given, also respect is reciprocal. So if you can respect the other person, also they will respect you. And if you can value that person, right, you'll be valued too. But sometimes what happens in a relationship when that leads to chaos, misunderstanding, disagreement, resentment, is because we don't value that person enough. We value ourselves more than that person. We value ourselves more than that person. That I'm better than you. You know, that is the problem with somebody who always want to disagree with you, because they always rubbish your opinion and say, you know, you're not smart. So, but if you value that person, we respect them for the humanity that it is. Also, we'll be respected also. Then we can engage. If there's not going to be any little problem, we can easily talk about it. We don't need to shout over each other. We don't need to say your opinion is nonsensical, you know. So if you can do what Dr. Ogundipe said, sometimes we think it's daunting and it's difficult, but it's easier said, you know. It is. We can do it. We can do
it. Comment, sir. You are laughing, sir. Pastor, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's doable. There's nothing impossible. We can do all things. Yeah, we can do. It's within us. If you have good conscience and you want to live well, yes, you do it. You see, you do it. You know, yes. Jesus says a statement. If you of this evil generation knows how to give good gifts to your children, so that means you know what is good. You know what is good. So may God be with us. Thank you, sir.
Amen. Thank you. Dr. Adeyegbe, sir, where are you?
Oh, Prof.
Yes, on mute, sir.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much.
Can you put all those thoughts together for us, please?
Well, I have 2 things that I put in the chat box. The first one is just to remind us that the reason we are discussing this issue is not to get the emotions heated up and degenerate everything to gender war. This is just to let us be aware that the ultimate consequence of remaining in abusive relationship is chronic debilitating diseases. Because eventually, you know, if you're in an abusive state, your emotion would always be raw. You'll be angry, you'll be frustrated, you'll be, you know, unhappy, and all of these things are what we classify under the sympathetic nervous stimulation. And what will lead to is usually high blood pressure, headaches, and all those complaints that actually make it worse. The kind of relationship that we are talking about will get worse because the woman is always having a headache, the husband is always having, heightened level of apprehension, and all of these things coming together would not improve the situation. So from the medical standpoint, there is no doubt that all the systems of the body are going to be affected. And so it is to have a good health, we must address this aspect of interhuman relationship. That was the big one, the lengthy comment that I put in the The second thing that I wanted to talk about is when Dr. Lillian was talking about intimate partner, violence, kind of narrowing it down to that. I'm not sure if everybody is aware of the child bride situation in Nigeria, where some part of Nigeria, a child as young as 8 years old is married to, an adult and expects to be a wife. So how do we deal with that? And that child doesn't even understand what that is all about. That's the situation that child is exposed to, and it's going to be abused for the rest of her life because she's going to be raised in that kind of a situation where she cannot make any comment. She doesn't have any opinion. So I see that as maybe, as pedophilia, and I think it's an abuse. I don't know whether the scope of the discussion tonight covers that or not, but that was just something I thought should be brought up. If we are talking about intimate partner violence.
It relates, sir. And Sister Tinu wrote, not only in Nigeria, it happens throughout developing and underdeveloped world. It's child sexual abuse. Early marriage is what they call it, but it's wrong. It's evil. It's wrong.
Well, but since we are not actually discussing the morality of it, we may not be able to address it in a very succinct way.
Minutes. Yeah.
I think the first thing is for us to be aware of it, because most people may not be aware of it. If we are not aware of it and we have not experienced some, firsthand or somebody not too far from us experiencing it, we may not be able to see how urgent, addressing such matters are. So I think it's something to be brought to the forefront, not just to be ignored.
Okay, sir. Well noted. Will do. So, Pastor Dr. Ephraim is sharing that October is, it took it off. So, I wanted to call on, it's reminding us of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You are on call. And that's why I wanted to bring on Dr. Fawole for what she wrote on the comment. We are on call. Thank you, Pastor Doctors Adeyegbe, for posting that and reminding us we are on call to be each other's blind spots, to watch to see if somebody is not behaving the way they are behaving, because they may be going through some things. They may be going through domestic violence, anything, so that we can step in and assist. Dr. Fawole, kindly go ahead and share your comment. Sister Lola, ready after her?
Thank you so much, Dr. O. And thank you to all our presenters for tonight, as always. It's been very intriguing tonight, once again. And I am very challenged, and I'm taking on the challenge. I do believe that in our society, some of us, some people are going through abuse. They didn't even know that they're going through abuse. And some who knows that they're going through abuse will not talk about it. And I do believe that there is power in awareness. Awareness actually is the gate to change. And the more we talk about this, the more comfortable people will be at expressing what they're going through. And I do agree that love covers, the multitude of sin. That's what the scripture says. But if we don't deal with it, it will continue. And that's why it's important for us to talk about it and deal with it. Some people stays in abusive relationship, whether through marriage or any other way, that has led to death and different atrocities. because of our society, because of our belief, because of our upbringing, and everything in between. And that's what I believe this awareness is the key. And just like Martin Luther King said, oppressor will never voluntarily give freedom to the oppressed because he's enjoying it. Unless the oppressed turn around and say, stop. An oppressor will not stop voluntarily. So it's not just going to go away unless we face it and we wage war against it together. And then together our community, by the great special grace of God, can be healed and be transformed to the likeness of God, like He created us to be. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for always, pouring into us. Thank you. Dr. Akinyode does not agree with Dr. Ogundipe completely. He said, what Dr. Ogundipe said only applies to reasonable persons. If you allow a selfish, arrogant person the benefit of higher esteem, they will turn you into a slave in a heartbeat. There is a lot of senseless individuals around. You know what? Oh my gosh. That opens up another kind of worm. I beg to agree with Dr. Ogundipe because the word of God is true. Sometimes when you shower people with love, you shock them into changing their ways. We've seen that. But when there is abuse, we need to focus on that, please. We should not take our focus off of that. You got to step out and step away. And women have been oppressed enough. I feel Sister Natasha's, temperature, because it's researches, lies, stereotypes, and all of that sometimes that causes the abused to stay in that abusive situation. And that's why we're having this conversation. Again, I'll say, if there's anyone on this forum or knows somebody who is going through this, please connect with us and let's bring them out of it, because next week they may be dead. And then there's no intervention even then anymore. But we can prevent. Prevention is always better. Sister Lola, kindly chime in. Are you there? Let me see if I can find you.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, please, because you agree with Abby.
Yes, good evening, everybody. I'm so glad that we are treating this topic. Last time I checked, we're about 35 or 37 on this meeting tonight.
We were 42 at the IS.
Okay, yeah. So if we know
so
another 42 persons, we can help, or we can also help them, or know anybody that's going through abuse of any sort. So that's an advantage. And also, when it comes to a divorce or a separation in most relationship or marriage, I know a lot of women that have been the one in the receiving end that's shattered emotionally to get themselves together, to start to put the puzzles and the pieces together to move on is very, very difficult compared to men. So I agree. And I also agree with Dr. Ogundipe also. The Bible, the word of God is forever settled. If you all can do that. But unfortunately, there are some instances when at the beginning of a relationship, that's what they're doing, respecting each other. And during the relationship, things change. Somebody change. It might be the male, it might be the female. Then you know the true character of such a person. And then you have to make a decision. Do I continue to take the abuse or I get out? Lots of people don't want to get out. But we're learning, just as this topic is being treated now, that is just get out. Let it be, save your life. And think about the children too, because if they witness this, they're also going to produce that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that comment. And I've seen that. And some women will be thinking that what if when I divorce, then what? How am I going to go on? How am I going to piece it together? And that may make them stay and then lose their lives or a significant part of their physical, mental, or emotional self. However, there are usually warning signs. You know, if I may venture to say, there are always warning signs in those dating periods. I was going to say that, and Sister Natasha just posted something. Sister Natasha, please go ahead. Unmute yourself again. I'm sorry, indulge me and just share what you just posted. Tonight, it seems like I don't want to do a lot of reading.
I was visiting with my daughter a few years ago, and she's a friend of hers wanted her to date her uncle. And my daughter went out on a date with him. She liked him, and she went on a second date, and they went to a park. So my daughter had a little child, and she was a single mom. So she took her, her toddler with her. And the man was pushing her on the swing, and he just kept pushing her. And my daughter is very she used to love climbing trees and stuff. But she felt that he was pushing her too high, and she told him to stop. And he acted like he didn't even hear her. He pushed her even higher. So when she got off, she left him, and she said, "I don't want to see you again." And she walked away from him. And a few years later, she calls me and says, "Ma, do you remember so-and-so?" I'm like, "Yeah, I remember. You left like after a couple of dates." And she said, he was dating someone else. They met at some gas station. They started arguing, and that young lady had a child in her car. And he pulled out his gun, shot her dead, shot her in the face, killed her on the spot. And he got arrested, and he ended up committing suicide in jail. And I am so happy that my mom taught me that to never stay with a man who hits you. And that I taught that to my daughter, and to not even take a man verbally abusing you in any way, disrespecting your emotions. And I believe that saved her life, because that could have been my daughter in that situation. And too many of our daughters I feel for that woman, and I feel for that baby who saw his mom get shot. So I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to share.
Oh my word. Thank God for your mother. Thank God for the legacy. Thank God for you.
Thank you.
Society will say, "Oh, she's a single mother," stigma. She may, because of that, say, "Oh, I found a man, let me just tolerate." When the warning signs were there. She saw it, she ran. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
When we see the telltale signs, please, let's run. I'm posting here now, the situation I shared earlier, the lady who killed a boyfriend, stabbed him to death. I posted the link. It's on Facebook. Thank you, Dr. Ajay, for sharing that with me again, so I can post it, because they shared it with me. We all need to see that video. And people who have children, grandchildren, people who are in the marriageable age, the younger folks on the platform, we need to learn from this, please. The telltale signs were there, like Sister Natasha's daughters. The warning signs were there. People warned him, but he stayed on and he got killed. He lost his life at 20, I think it was 28 or 29. It wasn't even 30 yet. Bright future. Thank you for sharing. Sister Tinu, before I bring you up, I'm going to bring Imam up. Imam, can you give us some closing remarks, please?
Thank you, Dr. O. We appreciate what you all are doing. And I pray Allah to reward you in this world and the hereafter. I wish that discussion on this very cancerous attitude in our society should not be confined to October alone. I wish we would talk more about this often, over and over and over and over. When we keep hearing something, it sticks in our head, probably it can emanate into our action. And the greatest thing we can give anybody is love. So I pray that God lighten our heart with his love, that we can radiate that light to others around us. As the pastor Ogundipe said, that when you esteem people higher around you higher than yourself, it takes a humble heart to be able to do that. And the messenger of Allah sallam was supposed to have said that La yuhibbu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi ma yuhibbu li nafsi. None of you is a true believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. None of you is a true believer until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. So that person you want to abuse, you don't want yourself to be abused like that. Why do you have to do that? That person is daughter of somebody, is son of somebody, is brother to somebody, is a son to somebody, is a mother to somebody. So please love your brother just as you love yourself. Thank you very much, Dr. I appreciate the opportunity that was given to come on this platform. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We appreciate you. I know you're very busy and you've made the time over and over. We appreciate you.
Actually, today is Monday and I've been fasting. I never had time to break my fast. I've not eaten. Now it's too late. I can't eat.
The Lord is
but it's worth it. It's really worth it because you never know what people might learn, what I learned too. Thank you.
We learned a lot. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Tinu?
Yes, ma'am. Hello, everyone. Imam, thank you so much that every time we call on you, you answer, and then you just keep on giving us more and more. And I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. The Lord
Thank you for introducing him to me, because I had deeper conversations with him than even you, I think.
Oh, you don't know. Yeah, Dr. Akinyode, yes. You're a very great resource, you know.
Thank you.
And for what you do, I just appreciate you. Like you rightly said, the Bible has it too. It says, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. So it is really true. So based on love, I said this last week that if you truly love yourself, you will show it even unto your partner. And you cannot say you love yourself and slap, choke, demean, or do whatever in a negative, derogatory manner to the other person you call your spouse, because then you would have been doing it to yourself. But then if you don't know that the two shall be one, then that's why you are doing that to the other person. Now, coming back home, I'm glad when we started, I started on the footing of the empirical and historical part of domestic violence. And I know some people who are here did not hear that, which is how we got into where we are legally. So having said that, one thing that I will advise us who are still here to do is to be our brothers and sisters keeper. Like they say, they call it a bystander approach. Let's be my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper. Let's keep a watchful eye on each other. My favorite expression is, Tinu, as a bubbly person, you see me the next time and I'm melancholy. I am so out of my skin. So you should know something is going on, you know, but there is also a way, you know, according to the Bible, it says that there is time for everything. So sometimes you may see me, the time may not be right for you to say or do anything, because that is also very key. So you use wisdom, apply wisdom to approaching the subject with that person, because the victims need to be, their trust need to be earned. That was the first thing that I actually learned as an advocate working in a shelter. So you have to earn their trust, otherwise you can't hear anything. And of course, professionally, spiritually, we help our people. Before we even help, intervention, let's prevent domestic violence. So it would be easier for us to intervene, and then overall to prevent, to eradicate in the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Tinu. Oh my gosh, you're such a gem. Dr. Ogundipe, sir. Pastor Dr. Ogundipe. Kindly give us, you're not unmuted, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It is my prayer that the Lord will be with us, that we all have a new heart.
Amen.
To deal with the issues around us. When we are talking about violence, it's not new. It's of old. If you know the story of Cain and Abel, it's been old. Reason why I told us anthropologically, this trait is in everyone. We have negative, we have positive. But all the reason why we have all that we've been sharing within ourselves, the ones that Imam quoted, and the ones we have in the Bible, are for our examples. You have all those things there. We have it, we read, we still read it, then you need to act accordingly. Try as much as possible. As Sister Tinu said, let us be our brother's keeper. When you see something, say something. I have another scripture in Galatians chapter 6, verse 1 that says, if any man is overtaken in a fault, let the which, not who, which are spiritual, restore such a person back in the spirit of humility, so that we can help each other. And I think God, I've been hearing about NAPAC. I believe God will also help the team, will co-opt this also into their program. But the Lord will be with us. We'll have a new heart. Then we will look out for each other and help each other out in any kind of situation that we have. But though there are some people that do not know the way of peace, but if you are a peaceful person, then you will look out for the peace of the other. Thank you. God bless us.
Amen. Amen. Wow. We can't end this like this. Again, next week, I think we're going to talk about, children who are abused in the homes, especially when it is mixed marriage or mixed relationship. We'll discuss next week. But I want to have a Medical Mondays moment. So first say that, remember that we don't attempt to have physician-patient relationships during these sessions. We discuss relevant issues medically that would impact us positively is what we're doing. But my Medical Mondays moment is that this October, we are celebrating, some of us, and I'm sure there are many more people on this platform, on our Medical Mondays family platform, that are celebrating birthdays around now. But last Wednesday was Sister Lola Aromolaron's birthday. She turned a big fantastic age that I'm not going to say. But every age is age that we should celebrate. This one's a special one, and I want to celebrate her. And Sister Hannah, Pastor Dr. Hannah Adeyegbe, is her birthday also this Wednesday. Can you believe it? The 1 week apart, Wednesday. It's also Sister Anna's and Brother Ajay's anniversary on Tuesday. I know the three of them are going to get my behind after this program, but hey, I don't care. I get to do the talking right now. I got the power. So I would like us to celebrate them and to thank the Ajays for me. Do you see this outfit I'm wearing? Do you like it? You don't like my outfit, Sister Tinu?
No, I'm saying we can't see the full figure.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can you see the top?
Yes.
You see more of it? Okay.
Now I see.
Okay, my brother Ajay. Thank
you.
Gifted this to me. So please, let's celebrate them, the three of them that are having anniversary and birthdays. So let's give them
Happy birthday to you.